Considering buying a house is one of the biggest purchase in your life, and it will be very daunting if the house you're buying is for the very first time. So here I list down the 5 financial must-haves for first-time home buyer, especially if you're in Malaysia. This will be very applicable to you. Number 1, you have to make sure that you have adequate down payment. So normally in Malaysia, you will need to have the standard down payment is about 10%. Some developers that have come up with very creative marketing plan where they give you rebates and stuff. So you might be able to get your house probably with 0 down payment as well. But the deal is less nowadays. So be prepared to have at least 5 to 15% of the down payment. That means if you're looking at a property about 200,000, you need to get ready at least like 20,000. So when you sign the booking form and pay the 1 to 2% earnest deposit, that's commonly known as the booking fees, and then within 2 weeks you'll be required to pay the remaining down payment that adds up to the total of 10% when you sign the sales and purchase agreement. And you will have a few months time where you can find financing to purchase the property. So the rest of it, normally 90%, most of the time it comes from the bank, where you will get it in the form of mortgage. So the second thing you need to have is you must estimate how much can you borrow. The common jargon regarding this method is the debt service ratio, or DSR. DSR is equal to your total monthly debt repayment obligation divided by monthly take-home income, and that's after tax and after EPF contribution and after SOCSO. Like a few years back, you might be able to get a higher DSR based on gross income, but now they base it on your net income. It's the take-home pay. The requirement is that you cannot borrow more than 60% DSR. So if your take-home pay is 5,000 a month, you'll be able to serve a loan payment of 3,000. But frankly speaking, I don't recommend that you go for that extreme unless you are earning 5 figures income. Then 60% DSR is quite applicable to you. And what I recommend is you have to keep your DSR under 30%, and this 30% should also include your car loan. So depending on the loan tenure, the younger you are, the longer term you can take, probably up to 30 to 40 years to completely pay up the mortgage. And Bank Negara also come up with new rules that the longest term is only up to 35 years. The third thing you need to have is you have to understand how much can you actually afford. So I recommend that you do a thorough calculation, because when you buy a house, it's not just the installment you're worried about, even though it is the biggest portion of all. Other related expenses is involved as well, such as the maintenance fee if you're living in a gated and guarded community or high-rise building. And you also need to pay fire insurance, you have to pay quit rent and assessment. Comparing this to renting a house, you don't have to pay all this stuff. And also the regular expenses such as the Indah Water Consortium, water and electricity bill, the initial deposit for all these utilities when you open up the account. So you really need to understand that your expenses will increase comparing to staying with your parents or renting a place. It is far more expensive. Take note of that. The fourth thing is you must understand the transaction costs. There are stamp duty involved. Stamp duty is like tax you pay to the government when you buy a property. So now the rate is 1% for the first 100,000. The next 400,000 is 2%. Then the amount that is above 500,000 is taxed at 3%. So you have to pay stamp duty on that. And above 2 million properties, you have to pay 4%. Other than that, you also need to pay the loan agreement stamp duty rate which is about 0.5%. So this can be easily add up to your transaction costs. Just for rules of thumb, you have to get ready with extra 5% of the purchase price just to cover all these transaction costs. And number 5, you also need to get ready with the renovation and furnishing costs, because when you buy a house with just a bare unit, especially if you are buying from developer, when they hand over the properties, you will need to fork out some money to renovate the buildings and also furnish it with all the stuff you need, like bed, cabinet, and probably need to redo the kitchen as well. So please be ready with a minimum fund to cover these expenses. And nowadays, due to the higher labor cost, it will normally cost, at least if you're a very small place, at least you need to have 20,000-30,000 for this renovation and furnishing. And if you're looking at a landed house, normally it will cost 100,000 and above. So these are the 5 financial must-have for first-time home buyer. So wish you all the best on getting your first house. If you like what you're seeing and you want to follow my stuff and get more personal finance money tips, just visit my website at kclau.com. Hope to hear from you soon.